My name is Sarah Brown-Schmidt. I am an associate professor in the Department of Psychology and Human Development at Vanderbilt University. And today I'm going to tell you about a research project that I did along with a former student of mine, Shion Yoon. Shion is currently a postdoctoral fellow at the Beckman Institute for Advanced Science and Technology at the University of Illinois. And this work was generously supported by the National Science Foundation. The aim of our project was to understand the cognitive processes that go into speaking in group settings. Group settings are very interesting because among pairs of individuals within a group, different people have different background knowledge. So the information that I might share with one person in a group might be very different than the information that I share with another person in the group. So if you're talking in a group setting and some people have a lot of knowledge about the topic at hand and others have less knowledge about the topic at hand, what's the best way for a speaker to design language in a situation like that in order for everyone to be able to understand what you're talking about? So to begin to address this question, what we did is we tried to look at how speakers typically design language in group settings. To do this, we ran an experiment in which we invited groups of participants in groups of 3 into my lab. And in the first part of the task, we took 2 of those participants and we had them play a game where they had to repeatedly describe a series of abstract images. They're very hard to describe, so over time they had to come up with labels to distinguish them from each other. And these labels tend to be things like the ballet dancer or the squiggly frog thing, stuff like that. Now, in the second part of the task, we took one of those 2 people, we'll call that person the director, and we had them describe the exact same images one at a time in 2 different situations. In one situation, they were describing these images for the same partner that they had done the first part of the task with. This is the person that already knows these labels, so they know which one the ballet dancer is. And in the other situation, what we did is we looked at a situation where the speaker has to describe these same images simultaneously to both their familiar partner and to a new person, that third participant who had no knowledge of the images, didn't know which one goes with which label. What we hypothesized was if speakers can simultaneously keep in mind the perspectives of these 2 different people, so the one that does know the labels and the one that doesn't, that they should provide longer descriptions when they're speaking in this 2-person setting, 2-addressee setting, in order to help both of them understand, in comparison to the case when they're just talking to their familiar partner. So to address this question, what we did is we analyzed the form of the descriptions that directors used in the second part of the task. And what we found was that directors were using significantly longer and more descriptive utterances when describing these images when they were simultaneously talking to their familiar partner and this new partner who didn't know any of the image labels. In comparison, when they were just talking to their familiar partner, they tended to produce those short labels they had come up with in the first part of the task, so things like ballet dancer. This work suggests that speakers are sensitive to the 2 people's different background knowledge and are able to design their speech in a way to help both of them understand in this kind of group conversational setting. Another analysis we did looked at the disfluency rate. So disfluencies can include things like saying, things like that. And what we found was that speakers were significantly more likely to be disfluent when describing these images when they were talking to the 2 people at the same time compared to the situation when they were just talking to their familiar partner. This result suggests that the process of coming up with a richer description of these objects in the 2-listener setting might be more effortful for speakers. So why is this work important? This work is part of a broader line of research looking at the cognitive processes that guide how speakers produce language in group settings. In this work, we've shown that speakers can keep in mind the perspectives of 2 different people they're talking to and change the way they speak in order to help both of them understand. But in future work, we're interested in exploring the limits of this process. So if you can keep in mind 2 people's perspectives, what about 3, 4, 5, 6? How many people can you keep in mind at one time? Answering that question will provide insights into the cognitive mechanisms that guide language production in everyday group settings, such as when you're talking to small or larger groups of people. The work also has potential implications to educational settings. So as you might imagine, Teaching in an educational setting often involves a teacher providing a lesson to a group of students who differ in their background knowledge. So some of those students might have a lot of knowledge about the topic at hand, and some of those students might have very little knowledge. What's the best thing for a speaker to do in a situation like this? Should they describe the lesson in a way to have the students who have very little background knowledge understand the topic? Or would it be better to say, shoot for the middle of the road? We don't have the answer to this question now, but we're hoping to try to address this question in future work by building on what we've started with here. Thank you for your attention.